Hey everyone, it's Kothis, and Spire of the Watcher is the new dungeon. This is actually the first dungeon to feature the Vex, which is kind of cool. We've got a lot of cable following, jumping puzzles, enemies to kill, all bundled up with a couple of pretty beefy bosses to take down. In my opinion, it's best to experience any raid or dungeon for the first time completely blind so you can figure out all the mechanics for yourself. It's pretty rewarding. But I know that not everybody cares about that, and if you just want to get some clears in, then this video is for you. The Spire of the Watcher takes place on Mars, and it's accessed from Savathun's throne roll. And although it says 1570 recommended power, the final boss area is 1590. If you're newer to dungeon and raid content, I wouldn't recommend going in any lower than 1585. You will feel really squishy and will have a much better time if you can just go in at 1590 or even higher to make it even easier. Alright, with all the setup out of the way, let's get right into it. So the first area is this Wild Westish town area where we'll need to power up 4 nodes in the center by shooting the diamond-shaped nodes along each wire's pathway in order from the cable's start to finish. So if you start from the center power station area where the cables feed into and follow any one of the 4 cables to its endpoint, keep following the cable, and at the very end you'll see the node is attached to a box with a blinking arrow pointing outward. So this is how you can quickly tell that the node is actually the starting node. To interact with these nodes, we'll need to pick up the Arctrician buff. We can get this by killing a conduit minotaur and stepping into the circular shape that spawns in where you kill it. Stepping into this circle will give you 30 seconds of Arctrician, which allows you again to shoot the nodes and power them up. And pro tip, while you have Arctrician and you shoot a node, it'll actually add 5 seconds back to your timer, and it's possible to go over 30 seconds too, so you can kind of continuously keep this going. If you ever lose the Arctrician buff, don't worry. Conduit Minotaurs actually spawn in pretty frequently, so you can just go grab it again. So the end goal here is you'll need to find the starting node on each one of the cables to power up the cable line, and you have to shoot the closest node to the previous node to successfully power up that section of the cable. I know it's a mouthful. So basically, if you shoot a node and another node on the same cable line and the cable does not glow blue, you'll know that you missed a node along the cable's pathway, so you'll need to backtrack and go find what you missed. Just take your time and really pay attention to the exact pathway that the cable takes. At the end of the day, this is very easy. You are just following a yellow cable all the way to the end, lighting it up, and backtracking your way back to the beginning to charge it up. You will get good at this throughout the dungeon and clears you get over time. And that's pretty much all of the dungeon's main mechanic explained. If you can understand this, you'll understand the rest. So for this whole first area, just power up all 4 cable lines to charge the power station in the middle, which will open up the bunker's door. You can take as long as you want here, so no rush, just stay safe and light up those power lines. Once the door is open, you'll need to slide down the tunnel. Be careful when jumping while you're sliding down the tunnel. You can very easily hit the ceiling and die. And there's a 45-second respawn timer here, which is kind of annoying. This whole next encounter is a jumping puzzle area, so I'll just kind of speed this up. The first of 2 secret chests is in this section, so make sure to grab that. I'm going to show you where it is. I will not be showing the collectibles in this video. There are 6, and I'm going to include that in its own separate video that's like 1 minute long, so it'll be really easy to follow. This video is more geared towards, hey, here's what you should be doing every single time you run this dungeon. You want to make sure you get your secret chests. You want to know, obviously, how to do the dungeon. I hope that's okay. Okay, now it's time to climb the spire. This is no different than the first encounter, other than that you will be climbing a tower and at risk of falling to your death. So do the same thing here, take your time, look for the conduit minotaur, get the arctrician buff, and look for the starting points for each cable by following each cable all the way back to the starting point where it has that box with the arrow pointing outward. Once you charge up both cables in a section, you'll power up a gravity lift that will take you up one floor of the spire. These floors don't really get any more challenging in my opinion, but each floor does have a slightly different layout, so just keep that in mind. No real need to explain the rest of this in any more detail, just complete the 3 floors of the spire and you'll earn your first loot chest. After this, you will have your first real boss fight. Akelous, the Siren's Current. Not sure if I said that right, but it sounds very similar to Akelous. Anyway, make sure you've got a good workhorse ad clear weapon like an SMG, a good hard-hitting special ammo weapon like a shotgun, fusion rifle, or wither horde, and a linear fusion rifle for boss damage. This boss is actually the Harpy boss from Garden of Salvation, so if you're familiar with that, you'll know how to do this. And again, same mechanics here as we've been doing so far throughout this dungeon, except now, of course, you'll be fighting a boss. The center area has 4 starting points for cables, so you already know what we're going to be doing here. Each cable runs out into sections that stick out of the spire like bridge areas. You'll have some nodes here that are on the side of these bridges, some underneath. Just make sure that you're following the cable the whole way to make sure you don't skip any nodes along the way. Powering up all 4 of these cables shouldn't take you more than 2 minutes or so, especially with a full fire team of 3. It gets pretty easy. Once the 4th cable is powered up, the boss will make its way to the end point of that final node that was powered up. So before shooting that final node, make sure your whole fire team is grouped up together so you're all ready for damage. The boss will be facing away from the center area, so make sure you're on the right side of the boss, and will open a bunch of its red eyes. Pull out your SMGs and shoot all the eyes. You'll need to do this kind of quickly. It's not that hard, but he will explode if you take too long, and he's going to send you off the edge and do a lot of damage to you, so just be careful. Shooting the final red eye is going to actually initiate the damage phase, where the boss will immediately start backpedaling away from you. You'll need to move with him to make shooting him easier with the angles and everything, but watch out for the holes in the bridge, as it does take precious seconds to make your way back up. If you fall down one of those holes, it's not fun, and I did it like 20 times. This damage phase is pretty short. He's going to back up pretty quickly and go to the middle, so you've got to make sure you nuke him as quickly as you can and as much as you can. No matter what, once the boss makes his way to the middle area, he will explode after a few seconds, so just make sure you're not standing directly next to him, because he's going to do a lot of damage and send you off the edge. And after this, it's as easy as just doing it all over again. Take as many damage phases as you need. It's going to take a little bit to get used to. It'll feel like you're barely doing any damage at first, but once you get it down, you're going to be totally fine. Once the boss is killed, you've got your second parkour area, where you'll basically be descending down the inside of the spire this time. Eventually you'll reach a level where you'll see some red cables. These are new. The only difference with red cables is that they all need to be shot within about 8 seconds of each other to activate, otherwise they reset. Red cable nodes are not attached to any other nodes, which is nice, so you can shoot them in any order you like. Just know that there will always be 5 that you have to shoot. Same thing here, just wait for the conduit minotaur to spawn in after you kill the Hydra, get the arctrician buff, and shoot the red cable nodes. Successfully charging up all 5 nodes here will open up the floor for you to continue your descent. You'll make your way through some air vents and some fan areas too, so just be careful here, watch your step, and you'll be just fine. And also just know in these fan rooms, the floor is an actual fan that will kill you, so you'll need to jump directly from the platform into the cubbyhole on the side. The final room you'll need to charge with red cables is this electrical room area. This is the 3rd room. There are 4 cables on the outside of the room and 1 in the center area. Charging up this area will open up the final door for us to drop down into to reach the final boss. But before dropping down into the boss room, make sure to check underneath the staircase for this really well hidden hole that we can drop into to get our second secret chest. That's the final secret chest of this dungeon. As dungeons normally work, the mechanics that you've learned along the way, you'll need to kind of combine all of them for this final boss room. You'll need to use both the red and the yellow cables here, along with a ton of potentially frustrating enemies to deal with. This room can hurt pretty bad. As far as weapons go, use the same primary and special ammo weapons that you used in the last encounter. For heavy weapons, honestly, my team hasn't figured out the best damage meta yet, but we've been fine running 2 linear fusions with Divinity for damage. The boss's crit spot is tiny, so if you don't have Divinity and you're using linear fusions, it's going to be very difficult to hit your shots. It's not impossible, it's just difficult. I've seen some teams do really well with Gallowhorn and 2 legendary rockets. I am actually curious to try that, but Dim has been down this whole weekend, so it's not really been easy to test out a whole bunch of damage types. Either way, just pick one of these 2 options or look out for the plethora of best DPS weapon videos that will be coming out over the next few months, for sure, from different content creators. This boss is a supercharged wyvern, Persys Primordial Ruin, and it is relentless. You will want to keep your distance from it as much as possible because it will constantly be trying to shoot, stomp, or dive bomb you. As mentioned, you will have tons of enemies that are trying to kill you. You honestly cannot stay still here for more than 1 second. It is very hard to get into cover through pretty much the entirety of the fight. Alright, so if you can get past all of that, this encounter is actually very straightforward and easy to understand. You'll basically just kill the Hydras that spawn in to allow the Conduit Minotaurs to spawn in, obviously kill the Conduit Minotaurs, get your Arctrician buff, and shoot the 5 red cable nodes. There are 4 cables inside each one of these big columns and 1 above the big diamond doorway. Successfully getting these 5 red nodes charged will open up 2 out of the 4 yellow cables starting on the outside of each column area. Check to see which ones are open, so run around as much as you need, and start following the path to fully charge the 2 yellow cables that are open. Once the second cable is charged, you'll want to make sure that Persys is in the room with you. You'll see the text "Seek Cover" pop up, which is basically telling you to leave the room and go back to the starting room. Once outside in that starting room, pay attention to the red cable nodes. They're going to reopen. You'll need to shoot them again to basically overcharge the boss's shield, which is going to remove it, opening him up for damage. The boss will then start making its way in your direction, but he'll be vulnerable. A Well of Radiance will help for a bit here, but once Persys makes its way to you, he's going to destroy it, so just be ready for that. You should be unloading on the boss once the big diamond door opens up. It's pretty chunky, so if you're 1585 or lower, prepare for a few damage phases because you're not going to be doing a lot of damage. Once the damage phase is complete, you'll just need to repeat this process until you take it down. Again, you can take as many damage phases here as you want, so just take your time, be safe. Once you kill the boss, that's it. You completed Spire of the Watcher. Enjoy the loot you get, and hopefully you can get that new exotic bow, the Hierarchy of Needs. I have my 3 clears in for this week. I have not got it yet, and I'm usually very lucky with any raid or dungeon exotic, so I know I'm going to get it soon. Lots of Tex Mechanica weapons and armor to go for here. I love the cowboy theme, and they also reprise the 7th Seraph weapons from way back in the day. Overall, this dungeon is a win in my book. It's going to be kind of there with the quicker dungeons like Shattered Throne and Pit of Heresy, making it very easy to get your 3 clears in per week. I love Grasp of Avarice, but that 3rd encounter takes forever to complete. So, let me know what you guys think. Have you completed it yet? Have you not? Are you still looking for someone? If you are still looking for someone to run it with, make sure to join the Discord. I really want to take as many people through this as possible, so hopefully we'll see you there. Alright everyone, I will see you in the next video.